We're in the heart of Notting Hill, and behind us is one of London's most talked about restaurants, led by one of Britain's greatest talents, Marianne Lumb. Today we'll be talking to her about her idea of cuisine and how she managed to achieve success. Yours is one of the hottest tables in London at the moment. What did it take to get to that level?
What did it take to get that? Well, a lot of hard work. Obviously, I mean, we opened 2.5 years ago, September 2013, but obviously I've been cooking professionally since 1996. I've been cooking for a long time. But yeah, the restaurant's going really well, really enjoying it now. We started on a team of 3 and now we're a team of 10. So it's been quite a push the past 2.5 years, but we're definitely at the stage now where I can really enjoy it and I can take nights off, which is always nice. So yeah, it's a really good shape at the moment.
What was it about this location and the area that appealed to you?
I mean, I spent a lot of time cooking in Notting Hill as a private chef, so I always really like being around here. And I live kind of nearby in Bayswater, so that was quite convenient. And plus, a lot of my investors live in Notting Hill also, so it seemed like the obvious choice. However, finding the site was difficult, and you know there was always something wrong with something. So this was the first site that we saw, and even though at the beginning it was like, oh my god, it's tiny, after that it was like, it's perfect. It just felt really good. I think there's a really nice feeling in here. I think a lot of women, and very sensibly so, become food writers and more kind of celebrity chefs rather than restaurant chefs. I think the hours are a lot kinder. It's no less hard work. It's still incredibly tough, but they go into that. So I think that's definitely something that's important. And also there are actually quite a lot of female head chefs. I just think that maybe we don't shout as much as the boys. I think it's quite interesting. Well, firstly, obviously, I'm here to try and buck that trend. And my kitchen is actually 80% female, which is probably, that percentage is probably slightly skewed because there's only 5 of those. There's four female chefs, there's 1 male chef. But my front of house are all male, and then I have 1 male kitchen porter and 1 female kitchen porter. So it's a pretty good 50-50 split. But I think, I want to send out a really strong message because, it's incredibly tough to be a chef. But I think once you, as Gordon Ramsay says, once you get to the top, it's amazing.
Seasonality plays quite a big part in your menu, and you're always changing things, keeping things quite new. Is that an ethical standpoint? Is it an issue of maximising quality, or a little bit of both?
This whole season thing. Well, I think the main thing for me is that to use ingredients that are in season, they're their best possible. They're in their best possible shape, and so a pleasure to use. And economically, it's the best price they're going to be at. And also, it's really fascinating. For example, at the moment, we've got a dish on which is white asparagus, wild garlic, and sorrel. And so all of these things are in season, and they just sing together. And, it's a really fascinating thing. So, when we're planning the menu, we just look at everything that's in season, and we think, right, we'll take that, and we'll put that there, and all that. So we are acutely kind of following the seasons. I mean, it's always quite hard when you're in a city. I mean, the ideal is someone like Faverken in, where you're literally right in the middle of nowhere and you can go foraging. So obviously we're not as lucky here, but I think it's the only way to cook. I must say, I did study architecture, but I wasn't very passionate about it. But funnily enough, some of my friends that I was on the architecture course with, Ed, he actually ended up doing the interior for this restaurant. So it was brilliant. It was brilliant in that regard. But I think the most important thing is it made me very, very sure that I didn't want to do it, and I knew that I needed a career that I would be completely consumed by. So even though it was a bit, it was a little bit frowned upon that I left the degree. It was the best thing that I could have done, really. I mean, and I think I studied art before architecture, so I have a basic knowledge of the golden section and form and beautiful things. And I think, in the kitchen, that is my creative outlet. I was just saying to Leah earlier, actually, cooking and creating dishes. And it's not just about the flavour, it's about what it looks like. And if you have you eat with your eyes. So I think it's hugely important, really.
Do you enjoy whether it breaks down barriers and actually lets you talk to your diners and become, I suppose, just more involved?
Yeah, I think my favourite social media is definitely Instagram, because I just love it. Twitter, I've never really got my head around. I can't, you have to be at a computer doing Twitter, and obviously that's not feasible. And I've often wondered about just totally wrapping my phone so I could do Instagram all day. It's something that we have to do like once a day at the moment. I think it's hugely important for restaurants. But I think as a chef, I don't think it's not so bad if you're not on it all day, because it just means that you're busy working, I would say. It's an instant barometer. Guests will be Instagramming while they're eating, so you can kind of check it. I can see everything's okay in here anyway, but it is it's an instant barometer. And I try not to use it as a source of inspiration. I try to find that ourselves, and we're trying to be as creative as ourselves here with what's the best in the season, really. You know what? MasterChef has been amazing for my career, and undoubtedly. But I was cooking for a long time before that. But the opportunities I had on that program, cooking for London's trickiest food critics, cooking for 35 chefs with 45 Michelin stars, including a Michelin inspector. You don't get those opportunities, and it introduced me to a whole new world, introducing to the industry, and it was wonderful. And it was incredible training for opening this restaurant, because as the first 2 months I was cooking on my own. I'm very happy to be associated with it. It's a machine, and it's amazing publicity. Could I do the program again? No, I don't think it was really hard. It was really hard. But no, I got a lot out of it. And Michelle's Roux Junior has been incredibly supportive. And we've had a lot of customers come to the restaurant because they know me from MasterChef. So it's all good. It's all good.
Do you read reviews of a restaurant?
Oh yes, always. I think I'm getting a lot better at it now. Criticism is quite hard to take, but now I think we're 2.5 years in, and now hopefully I can separate it, and you try not to take it personally. And the thing is, it is really hard to take, because you're in there over 100 hours a week. It's your life on a plate. But I would say that as far as critics go, they've been pretty supportive. And I remember reading a Giles Corran review when we first opened, and I remember thinking it was awful, but I read it now and actually it's really nice. So I think, especially when you first open, you're absolutely exhausted, you're really sensitive to anything that anyone says. But no, it's good, and it's good to build up a bit of a thick skin for stuff like that, because arguably the more successful you get, the more criticism you're going to get anyway.
Do you only look at the professional criticism, or do you sometimes go on TripAdvisor and things and have a quick look at the amateur criticism as well?
Oh God, yeah, I look at it all the time. I think everybody does it. It's like opening Pandora's box. You can't help it. It's quite addictive. But as I said earlier, it's an instant barometer, and if something happens with a member of front of house and they weren't performing properly, it's been incredibly useful to us, like that. But I think the thing with criticism is that my customers, they are coming here and they're paying to eat here, and so if they're not 100%, actually, I want to know about it, and I want to know if maybe that wasn't right for them. So I see it as all a learning curve, but yeah, it's always going to be a little bit difficult to take, I think.
It's a great way to approach it, really. Much better to focus on positives and kind of. Okay, we're just going to ask you some quick questions, if that's right. And you just say the first thing that comes. Do you mind us get to know you a little bit better?
Okay.
So when and where was the last time you had a really breathtaking meal?
I had a breathtaking meal on Monday, actually. I went to Marcus at the Barclay, 2 Michelin star. Got greeted beautifully, and it was a wonderful, wonderful meal. Incredibly special, acutely seasonal flawless cooking, flawless service, beautiful wines. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It was amazing, and it makes me very proud to, be a London restaurateur, actually.
Speaking of which, favourite restaurant in London, if you have to pick one?
Favourite restaurant in London? Oh, my favourite one's now closed. Brasserie Chauveau was one of my favourites. I love Eric's cooking. And, when he's there and in the kitchen, he's just this kind of whirlwind of passion, and his cooking is amazing. In fact, I love most of Kaufman's chefs, actually, and Kaufman's cooking, obviously. So Brasserie Chauveau, God, what's my next favourite? It's a tricky one. I would say, I haven't tried all of them, obviously, so I really want to try Iraqi, but I really like Ferrer at Claridge's. Of course, beautiful setting, amazing food, and I really like Hélène Darroze at the Connaught.
Any guilty pleasures, food or otherwise?
Oh, yes, of course. I'd have to say probably Walker's crisps. So I never buy them or eat them, but if they kind of come anywhere near me, they're gone quite quickly.
The harshest comment you've received here?
The harshest comment. We had one customer that came, and he'd had quite a lot to drink, and he said that he found the souffle inedible, but I think it was just the fact that he couldn't eat because he was so drunk. And then he came out and said, "I'm terribly sorry, but, we'll make you another one." And no one else, obviously, everyone else eats the souffle, so we kind of have a good idea of if it is edible or not. And so he came back in, and he makes a point every time he comes in now saying how amazing the souffle was. So I think that's probably the harshest one.
A nice take, though. Any dish you're particularly proud of at the moment?
I love at the minute we have a scallop dish on. I'm really excited. I'm going to go diving for scallops in the Hebrides quite soon when it warms up a little bit, hopefully. And so it's a dish with very, very fresh Hebridean scallops that we slice into a hot bowl. I'm going to cook it for you in a moment, actually. We slice them raw into a hot bowl and then squeeze over a little bit of lime, salt, chili and coriander, and then we pour over a consommé with 3 gingers, so galangal, ginger and turmeric, and it's just a very aromatic, it's a chicken-based consommé, and it's just really aromatic and light, and so it basically poaches the scallops very lightly in front of you. So that's my favourite dish at the moment.
What inspired that?
What inspired it? We tend to start with the ingredient itself. So obviously there is a season for scallops, but they're really good at the moment. So we start with that ingredient, and we get them incredibly fresh. So we want to keep them in their natural state as possible. And then I love consommes, and I love 3 gingers. I can't remember where I saw 3 gingers. I think it might have even been on a packet of tea, a 3 ginger tea, and I thought that's a really beautiful idea. So we infuse it in the consommé, and I don't normally play with Asian flavours. It just seemed to work really well together, and so it's kind of halfway between a ceviche and poached fish, and I love the fact that you have theatre going on at the table. I think that's a really nice thing to do, and my front of house are involved in pouring it on at the table, so it's there's lots of theatre, and also we're tasting menu in the evening, so the dishes have to be. Essentially, they can't be too heavy, especially at the beginning of the meal. So we like to keep things light. Dream collaboration. You know what? I'm going to keep. I will keep patriotic here. I think it would have to be. I think maybe Marco Pierre White.
What's an ingredient you can't cope without, or maybe you think's a bit underrated at the moment?
What's an underrated? You know what? Oh my God! Since we've opened the restaurant, I've been cooking for a long time, but since we've opened the restaurant, we have fennel on the menu in some way, shape, or form all the time. We have this beautiful supply of Italian fennel at the moment, which is in season throughout the winter months, and then it's going out of season shortly, and then the English fennel will come in. So we can basically have it on all year round, and it's so versatile because for some dishes we use on mandolin and we have offcuts, so the offcuts will be used for staff. And it's so versatile. Like we use it, to start a risotto. we use it. We put it in everything, and it's awesome. And it's not. It's a very beautiful Italian fennel. So it's not kind of like a strong aniseedy one you maybe find not at a farmer's market, in the supermarket maybe. So that, I think, fennel.
If Marianne wasn't in the UK, where would you go?
I think it would have to be either Paris, Milan, or New York, or maybe Tokyo. I pick those four because obviously very glamorous cities, but also like the nature of the small restaurant in those particular cities, particularly Tokyo and New York, that were actually probably started in Tokyo and Paris, indeed. So they all have a lot of small restaurants. So I think, and we have a lot of customers from there as well. So we know they would like it. If you had to pick a song that would define you, what would you go for? Wow. Okay, so on a Friday night, we're quite busy. On a Saturday night, we're quite busy. Obviously, it's the end of the week, just before service. We tend to have some music on in the kitchen just to kind of pump us up just before service when we're all set and we're all just getting ready. So we tend to have a bit of AC/DC on at the moment, which Thunderstruck. So I would say that's some. Can you tell us a little bit about how your kitchen runs? So the typical day is we arrive and we bring the produce in from outside that's been delivered. And then we prepare it. We have there's generally 3 chefs on per service, and someone's on the meat, someone's on the pastry, someone's on the veg. So we basically crack through that, and play with new dishes. Generally, most days. And then the part-timers who are the front of house. No, I'm joking. The front of house arrive at about 4 or 5, if we're not doing lunch that day, obviously, and then set the restaurant up. And then we all sit down and have a meal together at about 5:30, which is really important. And we try and eat pretty well. I mean, lots of offcuts of fennel, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah, it's really important that we all eat well together because it's, we're on our feet all day and we need to be on form. We can't drop any balls in the kitchen, obviously, and the guys out front need to be, look good and feel good. So eating is a very important part of the day. And then kind of have a briefing at about 6 o'clock, and then the first table is normally 6:30 or 7. And it's even though it's just 14 covers, it's a pretty fast and furious service because everyone's having 10 plates of food. So, and coming out of that tiny 10 metre square, there's quite a lot going on. It's pretty fast. And then we send the last plate normally, it really depends, 10:30, 11. So we don't actually finish that late per se for a London restaurant. So we'll finish about 11:30. Equipment in the kitchen you couldn't cope without? Yes. I would say it's a hard one. Thermomix is incredibly useful. It's an extra pair of hands for us in the kitchen. The vacuum pack machine is incredibly well used. The Pacojet we absolutely love, obviously for perfect sorbets and beautifully blitzed ice creams. They're all pretty important. I wouldn't want to choose between the 3, actually. So you mentioned a vacuum packer. Are you using sous vide? Yes, yeah, we do. I mean, it really depends on what sort of... it depends on what ingredient we've got on the menu, because the menu changes pretty frequently. So, for example, we will cook, especially game, we'll cook a lot of fish. We don't tend to use the water bath, but it's very, very useful. And then during service, we keep our sauces hot in there as well. So it's kind of multitasking piece of equipment, really. So you've got quite a small kitchen. Is there a kind of quiet corner you've got where you can invent a new dish, or do you wait until it's a bit more quiet? Quiet corner. No, that is not a quiet corner at all. I mean, I can put a gastro on top of the bin and actually sit down. Like in the early days when we were making sure the team was up to scratch and I wanted to leave them to it, I would sit down on top of the bin, very glamorous, and just watch them. So that's a slightly quiet corner. But no, it's pretty compact in there, I have to say. There's a little spot that we can get if we want to try something. I don't like seeing the customers see the chefs eat, so I send them round the corner into the dishwasher to eat if they're going to eat anything. But no, it's pretty tight in there. Where do you think British cuisine is heading next? Where do I think British cuisine is heading next? Well, I think as far as London is concerned, it's such an exciting time, and I've been told, I haven't eaten in New York for a long time, but I've been told that we are easily at the same level, if not surpassing them. So I think I hope the restaurant bubble doesn't burst. I get a little bit worried about all the rising rents and all that sort of thing, but I just think it's going to continue to evolve, and I'm hoping we're going to breed a whole new generation of passionate chefs, and I love the trends in restaurants. Like, I love the fact that you've got the shoe pastry trend happening, and they're having individual kind of shoe restaurants, and obviously the burger trend happened ages ago, and I love the way that that's really growing. And yeah, there doesn't seem to be a shortage of talent opening new restaurants, which is really exciting, and it's really nice because the camaraderie in the industry is fantastic.
If you had to give any tips to these new kind of up and comers, what would you say to them?
What would I say? Opening a restaurant, I would say make sure you have just get your team sorted before you open. I spent 6 weeks cooking on my own in there, and it was not easy at all, and it was tough. And also on restaurant sites, I think do your due diligence, and think about your VAT, get that business plan absolutely solid, because there's always going to be the unexpected costs, and you need to make sure you can cover the rent, and it's not easy doing that in London at all. So I think be very, very careful, and it's very easy to fall in love with a site and think, I can have an amazing restaurant here, but at the end of the day, the numbers you've got to crunch the numbers.
Any tips for the chefs themselves?
Any tips for the chefs? I would say get at least 3 years experience in amazing restaurants, so ideally 1 Michelin star. Secondly, read as many cookbooks as you can, and eat out as much as you can. I'm working on my own recipe book at the moment, so I've just been looking at loads, and I think Elizabeth David's Mediterranean food or Italian food, I've got the very old paperbacks from the 70s, and they're just awesome. She's so passionate, and it's just beautiful, beautiful writing. Thirdly, what was it? Anthony Bourdain. I met Anthony Bourdain in the late 90s, and he told me to kick ass and take names. So I think that means kind of network. So I think that's a very good piece of advice as well.